President Donald Trump has unfortunately been bragging to members of his inner circle about raking in $500 million in donations from the healthcare industry during his presidential transition. In fact, this explosive story and the explosive figures that come along with it was reported by the Wall Street Journal. And it might give us some insight in regard to what his policy priorities might be moving forward, even though he talks a big talk about, making America healthy, allowing RFK Jr. to do something about corruption in our healthcare industry. I don't know if I'm buying any of that at this point, based on the money that has flowed to Donald Trump during his transition. So Trump told his donors that he received a flood of calls from corporate executives and billionaires offering their congratulations after his election, and told his fundraisers it seemed like a good time to raise money. So now he's in a position of power. He wins the presidency for a second term. And that's when moneyed interests really do start, pouring the dough toward the individual in the position of power, in this case, Donald Trump. All told, Trump held more than 50 meetings with business executives at his club after his election, according to 11 people familiar with the activities. Activities sounds like a fun thing. This is not fun, okay? This isn't fun activities. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, when Trump won the election, his fundraisers told him to give donors a break, okay? And just chill out for a while. And guess what? Trump disagreed. And so to put Trump's whopping $500 million sum in context, the Obama administration, or Obama, I should say, had raised $53 million after the 2008 election. That's a lot of money. Okay, so that was during his transition. That's the money he raised. President Biden raised a little bit more, $62 million. That's 4 years ago. Now in 2017, Trump had already outraised Biden in 2020. Trump raised just over $100 million during his transition for the 2017 inaugural. Now fast forward to 2024, and we're literally talking about $500 million. That's how much corruption plays a role within the current Trump administration. Now, Catherine Wild, who is the president and CEO of the Partnership for New York City, whose members, by the way, include massive American corporations like Bank of America, Deloitte, Pfizer, and more. Well, she told the Wall Street Journal, everyone or everybody who is anybody went down, meaning to Mar-a-Lago. It was a proactive effort to not be a target. Okay, so let's bribe Donald Trump so he doesn't come after us, members of the health insurance industry, pharmaceutical companies. And you won't be surprised to hear that all of those wealthy business leaders also pitched their agenda to Donald Trump. For example, at a November dinner, pharmaceutical executives told Trump that pharmacy benefit managers and insurance companies are to blame for high drug costs. In December, Trump publicly vowed to knock out the middlemen, essentially referring to the pharmacy benefit managers. And then in January, the CEOs of the three biggest PBMs, okay, those are the pharmacy benefit managers, went down to bribe Donald Trump, legally, of course, because it's baked into our system. And they made their case to him. They promised that they would work to make the user experience better, but they also pointed to pharmaceutical companies for their high drug prices, telling Trump, no, it's not us. It's the pharmaceutical companies that are, implementing incredibly high drug prices for American consumers. And the truth is, both things are true. There have been cases where PBMs get certain kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies. And so rather than doing their jobs and negotiating for lower drug prices, they do the opposite. And there's no doubt that pharmaceutical companies are price gouging American citizens. We've done stories on this. There's evidence to prove it. So both things are true. But it wasn't just big pharma and PBM CEOs visiting Mar-a-Lago. Other attendees included Wall Street financiers, cryptocurrency executives, lawyers, lobbyists, and big tech titans like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos, who consider them Democrats like yesterday. Now, Trump is clearly loving all the attention, and I'm sure the funds that he's collecting. Speaking of visitors at his club in January, Trump described Mar-a-Lago as hot as a pistol. This is the hottest club in the world. gross. And in December of last year, he said this.
I did have dinner with Tim Cook. I had dinner with sort of almost all of them, and the rest are coming. And this is one of the big differences, I think, between, we were talking about it before, one of the big differences between the first term. In the first term, everybody was fighting me. In this term, everybody wants to be my friend. I don't know. My personality changed or something.
They want cookies, Trump. And you have the power to give them the cookies. And so far, from what we've seen in the short period of time he's served in his second term, he is willing to shell out the cookies. And that's what really bothers me about what's currently transpiring. He ran on a populist message. He ran on a pro-working class, pro-blue collar worker message. And one of the first things that has happened under his administration is he has done away with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the only federal government agency whose sole purpose is to look out for Americans who get defrauded by or ripped off by banks, by financial institutions, by payday lenders. We're talking about a government agency that's so independent and so bipartisan, or nonpartisan, I should say, that they don't even get funded by Congress. They get funded by the Federal Reserve. They received $700 million in order to conduct their investigations by the Federal Reserve. And they returned $21 billion to Americans who had been ripped off and defrauded by financial institutions. And the fact that that has now been dismantled is pretty gross and shows you just how transactional Donald Trump happens to be. The populists in his base have lost. I don't think they realize it yet, but they've lost. The corporate interests came in right away and they co-opted your movement. And that's really disgusting and sad, because I do think there are voters who supported Trump who did believe that he was actually going to do the right thing in, protecting blue collar workers, going after some of the scum that have essentially outsourced jobs abroad and done things that hurt American companies and American workers. But so far, he's backed off his messaging on wanting to do something about inflation. In fact, during a recent interview with Sean Hannity, in addition to Elon Musk, who was sitting by him as they did this joint interview, he just kind of backed off any responsibility in regard to inflation. I don't think the current inflation we're experiencing right now is his fault per se. It's too early in his presidency. But he seemed to not really want to deal with it anymore. And that's concerning. Finally, the money that we're talking about, the money that was donated to him during his transition, which Trump has told others he would use as a rainy day fund, was split among Trump's inaugural committee and various other accounts, including a large political action committee. The inaugural committee itself raised more than $200 million, officials say. That money doesn't get donated out of the kindness of corporate CEOs' hearts. It is a bribe. Our Supreme Court has legalized these bribes, and that really does undermine our democracy. In fact, our democracy has been undermined for quite some time now under both Democratic leadership and Republican leadership. But for some reason, that very real, tangible way in which our democracy has been undermined never really gets called out by our lawmakers, especially the Democratic lawmakers who talk about protecting our democracy all the time. That's their whole identity, apparently. But when it comes to corruption, they revel in it. They love it. They've made that bed and they love to roll around in it. And now Trump gets to benefit from that system. And we're going to see how that's going to play out over the next 4 years.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.